Continuing with the topic of healing, in today's video I want to speak about Jesus as an idol. A lot of people, especially Christians who are very into the religion and very into the Christian narrative and dogma, they think of Jesus as this idol. I will be speaking about this in the future because Jesus has become some sort of an archetype where you see him often in t-shirts guiding the president's hand or injecting drugs into himself in the place of another person. Like it seems that Jesus for common folk has become some sort of a higher self figure. Supposedly Jesus, that Jesus who is an artistic representation of European people, who is wearing a garb in the times that he lived, suddenly pops into picture and gives us advice or takes our place or guides us by the hand or something like that. It has become an archetype and an image in some sort of an imaginary friend for people. And there's something very wrong about this because, well, it may have some function in the personal experience and in the personal function that it has as any imaginary friend, as any sort of belief that helps you. It limits us in terms of understanding truly what was his message and what is the truth about what we should be studying in terms of the scriptures, in terms of the ultimate reality. There is one passage in the Bible that truly explains Jesus and his role, and he comes as very frustrated about people not being able to understand what he is trying to say, what he is trying to convey, and it has to do also with the topic that I approached in my previous video, that of demonic possession. And he explains one of the foundations of why healings do not work, and it is all because people's belief. But in terms of this quote-unquote belief, what we have to understand is whether Jesus is speaking about belief in him as an idol, as a figure, as some sort of imaginary friend, or is he speaking about belief and quote-unquote faith in the message, in the process that he taught the disciples on how to heal? Is he talking about belief in that, in terms of that connection that he was always speaking about, that connection between you and that quote-unquote kingdom of heaven, that quote-unquote world of spirit that he was always speaking about, that other realm that he was able to tap into? Not necessarily him as an idol or as an imaginary friend that is gonna concede all of your desires. He said it himself, you have to talk to the Father. Of course, throughout millennia of misinterpretations and flawed translations, I mean, this idea of Jesus as an imaginary friend has evolved and has come forward, and it's very ingrained in people now, because even the translations themselves in English portray Jesus as some sort of figure that we must idolize, or that we must make a totem of. But this is not the case. So I'm going to read the passage where he claims that he is truly not necessary for any of these healings. A man in the crowd answered, "Teacher, I brought you my son who is possessed by a spirit that has robbed him of speech. Whenever it seizes him, it throws him to the ground. He foams at the mouth, gnashes his teeth, and becomes rigid. I asked your disciples to drive out the spirit, but they could not." "You unbelieving generation," Jesus replied, "how long shall I stay with you? How long shall I put up with you? Bring the boy to me." Mark 9:17-19. Now we know that what is described in the scriptures might have been some episodes of epileptic seizures or convulsions. These can be generated by many factors, but mainly it's a severe reaction to a malfunction or imbalances in the brain. Of course, at the time, this would have seemed like something very shocking. And of course, it was mainly because of the most evil of spirits, which, as I explained in the previous video, might have been these thought forms that truly are at when I say thought forms, what I mean is the set of ideas, the set of vibrations that we emanate with our thoughts that can create all sorts of imbalances, even if in our own brains. A lot of these diseases, doctors are not really sure why they happen, and often lately they've been just prescribing less stressful lifestyles and plenty of exercise and fluids for most diseases that we have. But in any case, what we have here is Jesus being frustrated with the people around him, offering a dose of this condescending attitude that he shows from time to time. He seems very frustrated by the people around him. But most importantly, what he speaks about, as he says things like, "How long shall I put up with you?" in this very frustrated manner, he speaks about belief. He says, "You unbelieving generation." Now, what is important to point out here and to analyze is what belief is Jesus speaking of. Is it belief in him as an idol, as an imaginary friend, as a savior? This is what the dogmatic narrative, dogmatic Christianism would have us believe. Or is he speaking about belief in terms of the process or system that he is often speaking about? This faith that he explained, this process of prayer that he explained to the disciples, in which you would have to ask to the Father as if it was a friend, with quote-unquote shameless audacity. It is very likely the case that this is what Jesus is implying, this kind of belief. The story continues. It has often thrown him into fire or water to kill him. But if you can do anything, take pity on us and help us. If you can, said Jesus, everything is possible for one who believes. Immediately, the boy's father exclaimed, "I do believe. Help me overcome my unbelief." Mark 9:22-24. Again, Jesus is speaking about belief, about faith, quote unquote, about this set of ideas that we have to put in our brain or our visions of the future that we want to perceive. This is why he said to Peter, "Why did you stop believing?" And then Peter sank into the water. He's not speaking about belief in any dogmatic narrative. He's not speaking about belief about him being the savior. He said to Peter, as he was allegedly walking on water, "Why did you stop believing?" And Peter sank into the water. So Jesus implied that this belief was about Peter walking on water, not belief in God, not belief in anything else, not on him or anything. It's the belief that Jesus seems to be speaking of is more pragmatic than people often think. And now that story about Peter and Jesus walking on water is something that I went fully into the book and I will be analyzing further down the line. But to come back to this idea, we have two options for this quote-unquote belief that Jesus is speaking about. The first option is belief in the dogmatic narrative, belief in the Christian dogma, that Jesus is somehow this a savior figure that we must accept somehow in order to be saved, and in order for anything to happen to us, in order for God to accept us, we must accept and kind of put him in an idolized position on a standard and just subside to any of Jesus's wishes, which Jesus never said anything about, really. All the misinterpretations from the scriptures comes from books that were written after the events and that were written from others, from Romans, from Colossians, from all these other books. For the words of Jesus, we have 4 canonical scriptures. Those are the only ones that speak about the words directly. Everything else is an interpretation. Romans, even the ones from Paul, Corinthians, everything else is about the church and about their own beliefs and their own interpretations. We must look at the words of Jesus. He never said, accept me as the Son of God. He never said anything in this nature. He was never frustrated when people didn't recognize him as the Son of God. He always was frustrated about people not understanding his message, like we see in this case. Now we must understand that indeed in some of the canonical gospels, Jesus did say something along the lines of I am. These are known as the I ams of Jesus. But this is a concept that goes much deeper into the phrase, into the language. Jesus was not saying I am as his personal figure. When he adopted the I am, he was speaking about the principle of aseity, about becoming the all, about becoming a part of God, if you may. Now I go fully into this concept in the book, and that is a very complex topic, but this is not the same as this topic, as the figure of Jesus as an idol, as an imaginary friend. So we have that first option where we go through the dogma and we accept Jesus as this sort of jealous, kind of childish figure who demands our attention and our acceptance. Or we have a second option. And the second option, as I said, is Jesus speaking about faith, about belief, in terms of the message he was trying to portray. This greater idea that he conceived where you could tap into the world of spirit, where you can adopt the personality of God, when you have to use your thoughts to create your reality, to create your providence. When you pray, you go into the kingdom of heaven, and you have to believe. You have to act as if it has already happened. This is something that Jesus said himself. So if I want my son to be healed, then I have to believe in this. I know this seems like very silly, and a lot of people are going to be angry at this, but this is what Jesus was implying. And this is what some of the alternative medicines have us believe, that it is a question of belief. This is the whole concept about faith healing. Now, while I'll go deeper into this whole concept of faith, we must understand that this is probably what Jesus was speaking about, because he said, how long should I stay with you? Why should I put up with you? And what that implies, the how long should I stay with you, it implies that Jesus is not necessary for anything. It's not through Jesus that we get the results that we want. It is by understanding his message that we will get our providence and what we want. Now, it's very clear what he said, yet this is swept under the rug of Christianity, as many other concepts that imply this idea that Jesus was espousing a message, not himself as a figure to idolize. The story goes to say that Jesus healed the boy, commanding the quote-unquote evil spirit to come out and live in the boy. After this event, while indoors with his disciples, they asked him what happened, why couldn't we heal the boy? And he replied to them, this kind can come out only by prayer and fasting. As we know in Christianity, this is a very prominent topic, that one of fasting, along with most of the Eastern traditions. The story goes that the Buddha would fast for long periods. So in the next video, I'm going to speak a little bit about what is this connection between fasting and acquiring spiritual knowledge. This is a topic that is large that it may seem, but I will speak a little bit about it in the next video. If you're on the path of finding the truth about reality and our purpose as humans on Earth, the information that I have to share concerns you. After a lifetime of research in philosophies ranging from Buddhism to the occult, I've encountered themes and patterns along some baffling information that is beginning to be seriously studied by science. A Rational Divine Outline, The Ghost of Jesus, is the first iteration of this project, where I analyze the message of Jesus without dogmatism, fanaticism, or religious bias. You can find my work available on Amazon on the link below. If you find this work valuable, consider subscribing, sharing, and following me on social media, as it'll help others in the same path to find this information. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.